Are you the person that you were 10 years ago?
Absolutely not. And I'm very glad I'm not. Well, let's separate that out. I think as core values, my core values are the same, but as far as behaviors, definitely very, very, very different, and do things differently, approach things differently. And that's part of the process of learning, probably the hard way. You don't have to, for listeners out there, you don't have to learn the hard way. I did. It was like, but I think that was because I wasn't listening. One of those things, if you listen. But that's what we're talking about, being an authentic leader, is alignment between your present and future self. And we say present because we haven't included past there for a reason.
Right.
Leave the past where it is.
Right. The past is the past. We don't need to dwell on it.
Yeah.
The things about the past, if anything, is that you learn from where you have, you learn from that, but it's happened.
Absolutely.
You know, we always want to be looking forward. You know, we're not driving in reverse, we're going forward. And it's interesting that you say, you know, your values are pretty much the same. You know, I would say even for myself, some of my values, they flipped. I have the same values, but some values have grown and gotten more important to me than other values.
Yes.
My core is still the same, but some things just really evolved because
Absolutely.
I've changed. I've evolved.
Yes.
And we're always evolving. And so that's actually, you know, knowing and being an authentic leader is also knowing that you are a leader today, and that's where you are, but also have this idea and vision of what you want your future self to be.
Absolutely. It's one of those things, especially when we're talking about leadership, because being a leadership is not something you have. It's not something you pick up off the shelf.
Right.
It's something you learn. And it's a process, which means it has a beginning, a middle, and no end.
Right.
It's ongoing.
No end. It's ongoing. But it is not something, as we have said, you know, it's not something you buy off a shelf. But it is something that that you build, that you know, if you are around people who are leader builders, you know, when you are younger and you're in your elementary years and high school years and whatnot, and even as you get into university, the people that you surround yourself with, the teachers, your professors, the sports that you're on, I mean, those are things that you can get involved with so that you know you've got your present right now, but you know that I'm going to grow into be the leader. You don't start off being the leader of your basketball team. You grow into it if you want it.
Yes. If you want it, that's a big one. Yes.
Right?
I mean, you see that a lot though, where people have actually gone into leadership positions and it's not something they wanted, it was just something they fell into. And you know those leaders. And it's one of those things, I think, with leadership, you have to want it to do really well at. But then when you're talking about, you know, present and future leader, I do want to touch on the past component too, because a lot of times we beat ourselves up over the past. And one of the things that I think is really important to remember is that, you know, in any given moment, you did the best that you could in that moment with the knowledge you had. Because even immediately after, we've all had that experience where we said something going, oh, I shouldn't have said that. You said it straight away, but it was only in the moment after you said it that they had the context to go, oh, I shouldn't have said that.
Right.
But in the moment when you were saying it, it was the best thing that you thought of at that time.
Right. And you always have the choice to say to that person who you said something to, you know what, I may have misspoke.
Yes.
I realized.
Yes. Right.
That's a huge part of being a authentic leader, being a really authentic to you, who you are. Oh, you know what? That, you know, Damian if he doesn't do something that is that he realizes to his core, he will say something.
And that's the difference between recognizing your values and your behaviors are separate. Because then you can recognize and go, oh, that behavior I did doesn't align with my values or what the intention of my values.
Right.
And therefore I can now adjust and course correct, which is what you're talking about, past and future.
Right. Past and future self. But it's also, I think one of the other things that we don't think about, we're not always thinking about where we want to go. And And sometimes we are also, and this is something that I think is, you were just referencing this. Sometimes people get into leadership roles, they may not have wanted it, or they may have thought they wanted it, but they didn't take the moment to think and process and decide, is that the role that I really want?
Yeah.
Does that actually build on my core strengths, my superpowers? Because you see this all the time. The person who is the amazing salesperson, right? They can sell, ice to an Eskimo, right?
Yeah.
They're just amazing. And then you take them out of that role, and they think they want this leadership role,
Yeah.
and they are horrible. And why are they horrible? Because it's not that
different behaviors.
It's different behaviors.
Yeah.
It's not focusing on their course and their superpowers.
Yes.
And they're taking them out of the thing that they absolutely love.
Absolutely. And that's what you're talking about when you're going from your present to your future self. And as a leader, when we're talking about being an authentic leader, it is evolving into that future self.
Yeah.
It's not going, this is who I am now and then I'm going to lead. It's like, it's evolving from where you are now to having the skills and the behaviors to lead effectively that is true to your core, your core values.
Right. So that, to me, like that example of the salesperson, he could say, you know what, or she could say, I do want to lead others. I want to help and teach other people what I do so that I can have that impact. And so I'm not going to, for me to step into that role, I can't just step in. Like, you can't just say, okay, great, congratulations, Damian, you've got this promotion. Yay. Now you're like, oh shit, what do I do?
Absolutely.
You have to learn how to get into that role. So again, knowing where you want to go and what are you going to do to educate yourself, to teach yourself, to realize that vision of that future self.
Absolutely. And that's the future self is its behaviors, because your core generally stays the same. Very few people will change their values.
Right.
Whether they're aware of them or not, you have values, and a lot of times, when we're younger, our values are instilled by generally our parents, and then some other influential people, or might even be influential role models. It could be a character. I mean, as a kid, I think I was influenced a lot by He-Man, and you had the little lessons at the end of the show that this is what this is about, and all the goodness that was there, and that creates those values. But then they become almost set very early after that. But then your behaviors, and we mentioned that you don't behave now as an adult as you did as a kid, but as an adult sometimes we seem to think that we're set, and that's where evolving into your future self. Taking that salesperson example, the salesperson who is a gun at sales can go in and be a gun at leadership, but they're a different set of skills. You can't take those sales skills, and because behaviors are unconscious, you have to then integrate those new skills at an unconscious level to be able to perform. Yeah, and
it takes learning, and it takes practicing.
Yeah.
When you were talking about, your, value, what you were thinking of when you were a kid and the values and things that maybe, and all of a sudden, all I could think about is Wonder Twins.
Wonder Twins activate, exactly. We're showing our age. Definitely.
And they're like talking about our
millennials are going, what are they talking about? But
go look at YouTube and find out the Wonder Twins.
Absolutely. That was
Wonder Twin powers.
Exactly, yeah. But that's what you are activating that when we're talking about authentic leadership. You're activating those powers, and it's taking that step from your present self. You're learning from your past. Don't beat yourself up over it, but going, okay, this is a learning which has created who I am now. So all of that is good because you've created where you are now. But then it's intentionally, as you're saying, Jaclyn, intentionally going, well, I want to be a leader. That's my goal. So what are the skills that I need to have be my future self, which is the behaviors I'm going to behave. And this is where it's really critical to integrate that at an unconscious level, because it's easy to do something in the moment when you're consciously thinking about it. But when you think about that, when you first learned to drive, how awkward was it to change the shifter or do the indicators or whatever it was? It didn't flow smoothly. But as it integrated unconsciously, then you just do it in the moment. And that's what happens, where a lot of leadership fails, or people fail as leaders, because they've learnt it consciously. They've read the books, and they know it, but action is an unconscious function.
Right. They haven't repeatedly put it into practice over and over and over again. It's like, what do they make you do when you get your license, right? You have to do 40 hours, behind the wheel. You have to do X number of hours at night, and they do that for a reason. It's the same thing with learning, and leadership is a skill.
Absolutely.
So it's all about that repetitive and putting it into practice and acting on it. And then, obviously if you're driving a car and you're learning, you've got somebody in the car with you saying, okay, that was not the right thing. So again, going back to that MMA, measure, monitor, and adjust to figure out what you're doing so that you can keep getting better.
Absolutely, and that's where, as you mentioned, someone in the car with you as a leader, and this is evolving into your future self. It's having someone there, a mentor of some kind, that's able to guide you and reflect back. And also, too, we talked about in another video about emotional maturity.
Yeah,
having the emotional maturity to be able to accept that feedback, to be able to look at yourself and go, well, actually, I'm a good person and my core values are great. It's just some behaviors I need to adjust, and not take that personally, not be, because when you start, and this is where evolving into that future self becomes difficult, because we start to get judgmental on ourselves and defensive as to why we did that behavior. As soon as you get defensive, you shut down your unconscious.
Right. You can't be defensive about it. You can't beat yourself up about it. Just know that, if something happened that you are not happy with, that's fine. Just learn from it and move on. It's, you can't change it. Don't dwell on it. Learn from it.
Absolutely, and that's where, I mean, we have the wrong approach to things. An example I'll use, and I think we all can relate to this, where I'm sure everyone's had the experience where you're walking down the street and you trip on something.
Yeah.
Right, and you're really embarrassed by that. And that's, I want to use that as an analogy for learning these things, where we have this intention to do something, and we do it, we mess up, and we get embarrassed by that. But I did this, and I did it intentionally because I'd planned it. So I know I'd fallen over before and got embarrassed, and I said, well, actually, in the future, so this is that planning. In the future, this is how I'm going to behave. And so it wasn't like I planned to do it, but it did happen, and I had a trip, and I nearly fell over, didn't hit the ground, but then and it was a crowded area, and I just went out, yeah, and put my hands up and cheered, and everyone started clapping, and they celebrated it.
Exactly.
And this is the thing, because if we get embarrassed and we move back, we shut down our learning.
Right.
But if we lean into it, it's amazing how many people come to support us.
Right. That is so true. It's how you react to it.
Yeah.
So if you react negatively, it's going to hurt. It's going to have an impact negatively on the inside of you, your mental state, how you think of things, how you think of yourself. But if you celebrate it, it has a totally different impact. It's, and I'll even use that example of, I talk to people a lot about making phone calls and sales calls, right? Because people hate it. They don't want to pick up the phone. And rejection, right? And I'm like, but they're, and it's easy to say they're not rejecting you, right?
Well,
right? That's an easy thing to say. So what I have said to a lot of my clients is, okay, make the phone calls.
Mm-hmm.
If you gotta hang up, I want you to celebrate and dance it
Absolutely.
out. And they're like, what? I go, yeah. You want to know why? Because you're celebrating the fact that is one less person that is going to take your greatness, and you don't need them. So you're celebrating that you just knocked somebody off the list.
Absolutely, and exactly what you're talking about. That point there. It's something that as leaders we're taught, build up the armor, build up the strength. And we talk, authentic leadership is really about that alignment between conscious and unconscious. Because telling yourself consciously, it doesn't affect me, your unconscious knows it does. And this is where, if you lean into that, and this is evolving into your future self, is you lean into going, this person has a different opinion. This person might hate my guts. And that's okay.
That's okay. It's all right.
That's okay. I can be offended and hurt by that if I want to, or I can accept other people have the right to have an opinion. Because what you're doing by being affected by that, by allowing that to affect you, is you're saying that they should think the way you think they should think.
Right.
And that's just erroneous thinking on a massive scale. People are going to think what they think. You need to have that center where you know who you are and you accept those people hate you. And that's okay.
That's okay. It's not everybody is going to like you, and that's fine. People have different opinions, but the key thing is that who you are today, that person you are today, you know that there is a future person that you want to become, and you need to know that along the way, you are going to come across people who may not agree with you, who may challenge you, but you know that you want to change and evolve and be better. And so you let all those naysayers and all those things, it's just noise.
Exactly. That's the real key point to that, is that it is noise, and and this is where putting up the armor makes it really, really challenging, because you've got to fight against that. And you're putting up this armor because, why are you putting up the armor? Because it could be true. The reality is, it is true. That person has that opinion, and you're not going to change it. Very unlikely that you're going to change it. They're going to think you're an a-hole regardless. And so by putting up armor and trying to defend yourself up against, no, I've got to defend myself against that person's opinion. They think it only matters if you think it. If it's okay for them to think it, and you go, well, that's okay. They can think I'm an a-hole. That they're entitled to do that. If you think and are defensive because of someone else's opinion, it means somewhere in you must believe that it's true.
And so if you're doing things, and it goes back to alignment and values, if you're doing whatever you are doing that's aligned with you and who you are and your values, it does not matter what the other person says about you. If they think you're an asshole, right? But if, again, as you said, Damian, if something really bothers you, then maybe you need to take a moment to look inside yourself and say, okay, you know what? That does really bother me at my core. I think I might need to make a shift, and I want to change my future self into something better.
If it is bothering you what people say about you, that is that, as you say, evolving into your future self, going, hey, I need to evolve in a way that is going to better suit where I'm going. And that comes back to your values and the compelling future. We talked about that in a separate video as well. That really helps align it. What's your compelling future? But it also helps align too with taking that feedback, because that person that's an a-hole and saying those things, they might actually have some valuable feedback. They might have some very, very critical feedback that could help your company. But if you're defensive, if you're putting up armor, you're shutting out the entire feedback that they're giving. And when you can separate that, evolving into your future self, when you understand the difference between your values and your behaviors, and go, well, hang on a minute, that's their opinion about me personally, but what have they got to say about the processes that we're doing? Then you can take that on board. But what you also, and what I've found personally, and many times this has happened to me, where someone has attacked me personally, and rather than get defensive and defend myself, I listen to the process of what they're talking about, going, hang on a minute, the point that you've got there, if I understand you're making, is about this process, and we could adjust that. And so I acknowledged the point about the process because I wasn't affected personally, and I leaned into it, and they actually became a supporter.
Because you actually get to, you hear what they're saying. You're hearing what they're saying. It's not affecting you. You're listening. You're taking the criticism and you're thinking, okay, or whatever they're saying that may not be, something that you might think about changing. And it may not be something that you were aware of. So that you become aware of it. And then again, you can reframe it in your, to yourself, so that you can take that and put it again towards your future self, your future company. And that then also changes your behavior, but you're aligning it with your values.
Absolutely. And I love that you mentioned your future company as well, because as a CEO, as a leader, the company needs to evolve. And that's just life. Whether you believe in evolution or divine creation, doesn't matter. Either way, you're evolving or you're dying. And if your company's not evolving, it's dying. And this is where your company, you need to take that step further as well. It's not just you personally aligning, going from your present to your future self. It's the company. How is the company going to its future self? What is that? What is that vision? And how are you keeping people aligned with that?
And when you are thinking about whether, that present or future self, being able to hear from other people, because you are never going to know about it. If you can't hear it, you're never going to be open to ideas, and you're always going to think it's my way or the highway. And that we all know that's not what is going to make a company evolve and rise up.
Absolutely.
It can help a company reduce.
Yeah. And that's part of how if we're as a leader moving forward, when we're talking about going from our present to our future self, or our company going from its present to its future self, we need to be paying attention and listening to what's going on, because we need feedback.
Yes.
Because we have to operate in the moment of what's actually happening, because as a company and as a CEO, we're there to add value, and it's through that adding of value that we actually generate income to be able to pay the employees and all the other things that we have to do.
Right. Yeah, and I'm thinking about this. Is that future person and that future, the present person and the future person, surround yourself with it, just like in a company. Who are your board of directors that you can actually lean on to actually help you be that better future person, be that better future company.
And in that sense as well, this is where that evolution into your future self is really important, to have that strength of character, because you don't want to be aligning yourself with a whole bunch of yes men.
Yeah,
you want people that are aligned with the same values. Yeah. Absolutely. It's having that strength of character to be able to have people around you that are aligned values. We talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
Their values are aligned in the compelling future, which you haven't watched that video, go and check that out, because that's really critical of being aligned on the compelling future as well. But then it's the behaviors. You want people that can push back and go, hey, maybe we could do this in a more efficient way, because the more efficiently you can do that, the quicker you're going to get there, and the better everyone's going to feel.
Yeah, I love it.